This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jansen. The show is always live and it's broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel on demand. Now, the search for 3 missing fishermen off the Cape Coast has been put on hold. We've been told we'll be live in Cape Town shortly for an update. Then a South African woman is due to appear in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court this morning after she was caught with drugs worth nearly 5 million rand at OR Tambo yesterday. Our question of the day, well, crime statistics will be released in South Africa a little bit later today. There you see it. What are your expectations? At SABC Newsroom, that's where we want us to give us your contribution on our question of the day. And there are the details. That's where you can give us an answer. Now, calm has returned to Extension 44 in Polokwane after another violent protest there. We get an update from the Congo Brazzaville, where thousands of people hit the streets in protest over the weekend. And we close the show with health plans of the World Health Organization, this following the UN Special Summit that was also held over the weekend. But first, let's get today's news from Anine Dormel.
Good morning, I'm Anine Dormel. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. An increase in violent crimes. That's what crime experts say this year's crime statistics will reveal today. That's when Police Minister Nathi Nhleko releases the annual national statistics in Parliament this morning. The Institute for Security Studies believes South Africans could expect to see a spike in crimes like murder, robbery and car hijacking. The woman who was arrested after drugs worth 4.6 million rand were found in her possession at Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport is expected to be in court this morning. After wide speculation that she is a local actress, police confirmed that she only worked as an extra. Her identity will be revealed when she appears in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court. On Sunday, custom officials found 15.4 kilograms of crystal meth in her luggage when she entered the country from Abu Dhabi. In Cape Town, the search for 3 fishermen who were presumed to have drowned off the coast of False Bay has been suspended. On Sunday night, 21 crew members abandoned the MFV Lincoln when it ran into difficulty off Hang Klip. 9 of the crew members died. An investigation into the incident has been launched. There has been a call from President Jacob Zuma for UN structures to include more African countries because they are no longer colonies. The President was addressing international leaders and delegates attending the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. President Zuma says the African continent needs to be given more power in the UN as it has free, independent states.
It is unacceptable and unjustifiable that more than 1 billion people in the African continent are still excluded as permanent members of the key decision-making structure of the United Nations Security Council.
And Twitter can't get enough of Trevor Noah this morning, with The Daily Show trending as its #1 rank. Noah made history in the United States as he hosted his first ever episode of the now revamped show from New York. He officially took over from Jon Stewart yesterday, but his first episode will only be televised in South Africa on Comedy Central at 9 tonight. Well, of course, we'll be watching, but remember, for more on all those stories, you can follow us on Facebook at SABC Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, over to you.
Thank you, Anine. Now, the search for 3 missing fishermen off the Western Cape Coast has been put on hold after it was called off yesterday afternoon. 9 fishermen drowned after a crew of 21 abandoned their vessel near Hang Klip on the False Bay coast, southeast of Cape Town. Survivors were treated at the False Bay Hospital and then discharged. Families and survivors gathered at the Viking Fishing Company, visibly shaken and traumatized. The 42-meter trawler reportedly started taking on water in rough seas, resulting in the 21 crew abandoning ship. The company has launched an investigation into the incident. Now, for the latest, we are joined by our very own reporter, Vanessa Puna, in Cape Town. Very good morning to you, Vanessa.
Good morning to you, Evan.
You spent some time with the rescue team yesterday. Yeah, what's the latest? What are they saying about the rescue or the ongoing search?
Eben, yes, we did speak to the rescue team, people from the NSRI yesterday, and as well as this morning I spoke to Jared Blows from the Maritime Rescue Coordination Centre. As at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the search for the 3 missing seamen has been suspended until further notice. A navigational warning has been sent out to all the vessels in the area, and if any information is forthcoming from that warning, then authorities will assess and put forth the search for the 3 missing seamen. Now, there have been various reports, Eben, or differences in the number of people reported to have died in this tragedy. But speaking to the agencies this morning, they have confirmed that at this stage 9 people have died, 9 people have been rescued, and the search, of course, for the 3 missing seamen at this stage. We've also learnt, Eben, that as at this morning, the stricken vessel, the Lincoln, has been towed into Table Bay Harbour. I've spoken to SAMSA, that's the South African Maritime Safety Authority, earlier on, who told me that at this stage it's very early in the investigation as yet. They'll put forth the investigation as soon as they have access to the vessel, which is in the port of Table Bay at this stage. Yesterday we also saw some harrowing visuals, emotional scenes outside the Viking Fishing Company, where family members as well as survivors of this incident came together, emotional, people hugging, just very traumatized, and at that stage not prepared to speak to the media of their ordeal after the ship, the fishing trawler, the Lincoln, took on water as late as 6 o'clock on Sunday evening in very rough seas, a few nautical miles off from Hunklip on the False Bay coastline.
Vanessa, it doesn't quite add up for me. If the trawler's been pulled into the harbour this morning, why did the fishermen jump off the boat?
Eben, that is the question that has been asked. Also in the media, people have questioned whether there was sufficient training and exactly why the fishermen decided to abandon the ship is also, I suppose, will come under investigation once the authorities take possession of the ship, and also the company itself and the police launching the investigation into this incident. At this stage, what we've heard is that the swells were 6 meters high, very rough sea conditions, and the crew then decided to abandon ship. But their reasons for doing so will form part of the investigation, I'm sure.
Vanessa, what about the survivors, their condition in the False Bay Hospital, and has anybody been able to talk to any of them?
Eben, we were at the False Bay Hospital yesterday after we've learned that 3 survivors were taken there. They were discharged from the False Bay Hospital, and most of the survivors have reunited with their families outside the Viking Fishing Company. We've learned from Mr. Rory Williams for Viking Fishing that they had called the families and asked them to meet at the headquarters in Cape Town at the harbour for them to be updated. We know that yesterday as well, families as well as survivors have undergone trauma counselling by the company. And also the company did indicate yesterday that their first priority at this stage, Eben, would be to provide for the needs of the families, the grieving families, also just assisting people with whatever arrangements have to be made going forward in the next week or weeks to come, whether it be funeral arrangements, more trauma counselling, but just the company has given the assurance that they are taking the needs of their staff members and their families into consideration at this time.
Vanessa, when I look behind you, it's not really windy, and in Table Bay, the water looks quite flat. False Bay on the other side of the mountain, can it really get that big, 6 meters high?
Eben, yes, we have heard reports that the weather was particularly bad last weekend, on Sunday in particular, with rough seas, 6 meter high swells, and even a 42-meter trawler could be in quite a bit of difficulty in those rough sea conditions. It's not known as the Cape of Storms for nothing. We have seen some huge shipping disasters in the last couple of years because of bad weather along the False Bay coastline. Also into the Table Bay harbour, we've seen some maritime disasters taking place. The Sally one a couple of years ago, just an example, running aground at near Milnerton. So yes, sea conditions can change very quickly in the Cape, and as I've learned, that is what happened at the weekend, on Sunday in particular, when the Lincoln got into trouble.
Quickly, Vanessa, The search for the 3 missing seamen, it's been put on hold. Do you have any idea if it's going to restart?
Eben, yes. What we've learned from the MRCC this morning is that they have put out this navigational warning to all the vessels in the area to be on the lookout for anything. And once they've fed that information through to the relevant authorities, they'll then make an assessment and decide whether to go ahead today or not with that search. But the latest information is that at this stage it is a search for 3 missing fishermen, which will probably commence later on, like I said, once they have information from the vessels in that area to be on the lookout for anything that could prompt a restart of this search and rescue.
Vanessa, thank you for that update. That's Vanessa Puna coming to you live from Cape Town. A very sad story. 9 fishermen are confirmed dead after they got off their boat in rough seas. Well, we'd love to hear how that story actually went down, because that trawler that got into trouble was actually towed into the harbour this morning. Now, another story that's really caught the headlines yesterday. A South African woman is due to appear in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court after she was caught with drugs with an estimated street value of 4.6 million rand in her passenger bag. Authorities stated earlier that she was a well-known South African actress, but after much consternation on social media, later revised this to say she had appeared as an extra on some shows. The South African Revenue Services Luther Labella says customs officials found 15 parcels hidden in the luggage of the actress. He says they discovered the drugs after the suspect arrived from Abu Dhabi on Sunday. Now, earlier this month, Indian authorities arrested a South African woman for smuggling 40 packets of drugs suspected to be cocaine hidden in her abdomen and genitals. The 32-year-old woman was arrested at the Rajiv Gandhi International Airport in Hyderabad after arriving from Dubai. South Africa and Ghana are the only 2 countries in the world which do not have prisoner transfer, which would allow citizens to serve their sentences in their home country, making it difficult for thousands of South Africans serving time abroad. Now, today on Newsroom, we ask what are the implications of South Africa not having a prisoner exchange program with any country. And, well, to help us unpack that, we're joined via Skype. Patricia Gerber is the Director of Locked Up Abroad. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, Patricia.
Good morning, Evan, and thanks for having me.
Prisoner exchange program. We don't have that here in South Africa, along with Ghana. What are the implications of that in a nutshell?
It is actually by not signing a prisoner transfer agreement with foreign countries, and South Africa and Ghana, as you said, have been the only countries not having such agreement. It has lots of problems because the rehabilitation of prisoners cannot be done without the support of the families participating therein. Secondly, our prisons are so full and it's costing the taxpayers over R1 billion a year to keep the foreigners in our prisons. So it would be a better idea to rather return our citizens and let them serve their citizens in their home countries. And the other thing is, which we've been talking about for very long, is for every South African arrested in a foreign country, there's a recruiter and a drug lord being protected in our own country. So that's why we have this huge problem of South Africans being recruited all the time, and these drug lords and recruiters have no fear of being ever arrested.
Give me your view on, yesterday we had this high-profile case, or it started to look like a high-profile case, 4.6 million rands worth of drugs found in a woman's luggage. Early reports stated that she was a famous actress here in South Africa. She was traveling from Abu Dhabi with that amount of cocaine. Not cocaine, it was what we know as tick, actually, crystal meth. With that amount of drugs on her, she's definitely not a decoy then.
Well, I would think that she was not a decoy. I do believe that the authorities are tipped off because that has been proven over and over. Our airports, how does she get through Abu Dhabi airport? How has all the South Africans gotten through our airports carrying the drugs from South Africa out to countries like Indonesia, Hong Kong, the drugs were taken from South Africa, even Mauritius. And my problem is that they are not being stopped. Yeah, we need them to be stopped. And with the new law that has now been put in place on human trafficking, we would like to see what are they going to do with this case of this girl that's now been arrested, because he has a perfect opportunity to implement it and get the recruiters and drug lords also arrested.
It seems South Africans often fall prey to unscrupulous characters within the drug trade, and often we even used as decoys sent out to be arrested. What are some of the signs that South Africans and maybe even young South Africans should be on the lookout for, that they don't fall into the drug trafficking trap?
The problem is that they are approached from different views. One of them is that they are offered a job. So the thing is, it is not necessary the job being in South Africa. They will come and say there could be training overseas, and these people fall into this trap and accept it. The other thing is, we do have people that are really struggling and they have no money or no income, no job, no nothing. And then they prey on these people and say to them, you know what, if you just go over, some of them are not aware that it is put in their luggage. They are given a case because they don't even possess a case, luggage, and they're given clothes, and they think that they are necessary, perhaps even taking something which is not drugs. I know people think that it's far-fetched. But for instance, if somebody goes and they say to them, there's a job opportunity, and they go to, say, for instance, Brazil, and they arrive there and they find out, okay, it's not. Do you know that their passports get taken away from them? They are then forced to do this. I saw an interesting thing on, which was in the news now just this past week, on the Sexpo that was held in Johannesburg, where they had a stall where they had these new drinks, energy drinks, advertising these new energy drinks and offering people who'd like to start up a business, they can go overseas and go and promote this new energy drink. And they suggested to the people, those that are interested can sign up, and there's big money involved. And within a few minutes, 2 women went and they gave their names, their addresses and everything. And then what they did was they sent out an SMS to these 2 women, and they said, do you realize that you have now just signed up into human trafficking?
Wow, that is so easy, and it looks so legitimate. Patricia, we've run out of time on this interview, but very interesting topic. Thank you for joining us. It is a scourge of our time, drug trafficking, human trafficking. Patricia Gerber, well, she is the director of Locked Up. Now, of course, today South Africa waits for crime statistics, and crime analyst Dr. Johan Burger says there are indications that the annual national crime statistics that Police Minister Nadia Nhleko will release this morning will reveal an increase in violent crimes, such as aggravated robberies. Nhleko is expected to release the statistics in Parliament at 10 o'clock this morning. You can send us your views, but we've picked up a few other views on social media with regards to crime statistics. Londiwe Mbokazi says, always gloom and doom when it comes to crime stats. Pat Ngwenya, Mr. he calls himself. I am not sure about the crime stats to be released this morning. Are they independently audited? If not, chances are high to be manipulated. We can't always see the conspiracy. Dalu says, crime stat is the human life that worthless? It's weird seeing the murder rate go up. That really made my stomach feel some type of way. Dalu, I can't tell you, we've had a steady decline in murder since 1994 in South Africa. Jason Lee McCall says, so the crime stats come out today, or as we like call them, Harry Potter's great book of wizardry and deception. Yes, easy to say. Paul Mube says, curiosity. Can't wait to hear the latest crime statistics. That one from Pearl. Now, for a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from Ryan Khashevsky, captioned, Trevor Noah on hashtag Daily Show premiere on replacing Jon Stewart. He says it feels like the family has a new stepdad and he's black. Wonderful quote there. Anyhow, that's Trevor Noah, the pride of South Africa right now. We love Trevor, don't we? South Africa's funny man. He's really setting the world alight, setting the tone for an entire industry to flourish here in South Africa. Let's now take a look at the front pages. Newspapers from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times reports that running water has been found on Mars in a discovery that significantly raises the odds of finding alien life. Streams of water flow on the hillsides and canyons of the planet during Martian summers, NASA revealed yesterday. Then we move to New York, where the International New York Times says European legislators got a jolt this month in their long-running effort to update auto emission standards when a German member of the European Parliament suddenly proposed exempting a whole class of vehicles. Finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that the UN convened its 70th general debate in New York yesterday, beginning a week of intense diplomacy with a series of speeches from leaders preoccupied with the fate and consequences of Syria's intractable civil war. Quick look at what's happening around the country today. We start in Johannesburg. A woman who was caught at OR Tambo International Airport on Sunday carrying 15.4 kilograms of crystal meth in her luggage while she's expected to appear in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court this morning. The accused was travelling from Abu Dhabi, as we reported in the previous story. Now, in this exciting discovery, NASA scientists have discovered new evidence that water flows on Mars during its warmest month, raising chances that life could exist on the red planet. NASA's first found signs of water on Mars more than a decade ago, but earlier indications were that any existing water would be frozen and concentrated on opposite ends of the planet. Experts are saying that this is the best evidence we have to date of liquid water occurring today on Mars. Time for us to take a short break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this. As Africans, we tell a common story. Together, we make up a common picture. For the 7th time since 1998, AfriCities Summit is uniting people from local governments across the continent and asking them to contribute in voice and action to shape a common vision of transformed African cities by 2063. Join us. Learn about the AfriCities 7 Summit, Johannesburg, South Africa, 29 November to 3 December 2015.
Welcome back. Limpopo police are still looking for an 11-year-old boy who disappeared in Extension 44 in Polokwane on Wednesday last week. Lesiba Maposa was last seen in the company of a 14-year-old friend and an unknown man. The friend returned home unharmed. The community burnt down 2 RDP houses, a tavern and a vehicle of people they suspected to be behind the boy's disappearance. They include the family of the 14-year-old friend and some of Maposa's relatives. The suspects have now since gone into hiding. Now, police spokesperson Ronald Otto says no one has thus far been arrested. Now, for the latest, we are joined by our very own reporter from Polokwane, Pelani Pachadi. A very good morning to you, Pelani. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, and a very good morning to all of you.
This is a disappearance that has really pained the community there in Extension 44, Pelani. But just tell us, what's the latest with regards to the disappearance of 11-year-old Lesiba Maposa?
Well, Urban, the 11-year-old boy is yet to be found. This is despite an intensive search by the community and the police. They've involved their K9 unit and other child protection service unit. But however, the 11-year-old boy is yet to be found.
Now, for the sake of our viewers, just take us back to Wednesday last week and in the events that has brought us to where we are now.
Well, last week on Wednesday, it is alleged that the 11-year-old boy, together with a friend of his, who is a bit older, 14 years old of age, went on a walk for about several hundred meters to the main road in Greenside, where they found a man who gave them 2 rands each and asked Lisiba to go buy cigarettes for him and airtime. However, the young boy was since taken from the eyes of his friend. Upon arrival at home, the 14-year-old boy, when asked questions on where is the 11-year-old boyfriend, he just said he was taken by another man. This caused a lot of confusion to the family, and they were particularly, I should say, angry, and they decided to confront the mother of the 14-year-old so that they be told where exactly is their son.
Now, Lisiba's disappearance has been linked with allegations of the sale of body parts, ritual murder and witchcraft, and that seems to be quite rife in Limpopo. Is that accurate?
Yes, in Limpopo we do have a rife cases of ritual killings. It is indeed correct again that this particular case may be linked with ritual killings. That's what the community is suspecting, because they went on to touch the houses of 2 other people in the community, of whom they suspect to have had a hand in taking the young boy and maybe using him for rituals and may have killed him as well.
Now, the community, they've taken the law very much into their own hands. They blame the family of the 14-year-old friend that was with the boy when he disappeared. Just tell us, what have they done to the family, and what has been the family's reaction to this kind of vigilante attacks on them?
The families basically are now, as stipulated earlier, they are out on, they are at places of safety because they are fearing that they may be harmed or hurt within the community. Basically, they are accused of taking the child. So you find that the things that the community are talking about, including these ritual killings, they went out, basically told the families to confront them so that they'd be told exactly what may have transpired. They also believe that the families may have killed the child, the 11-year-old boy, and may have mutilated him. So they also allege that they found bodies there, this is just basic allegations. They found body parts. That's why they even touched the families. So they believe that the police are not doing enough to ensure the safe return of the child, which has went missing.
And what are the police saying in conclusion?
In conclusion, the police are saying that they've intensified the search for the young boys, for the young boy. This is also in particular to other cases in the province where young boys and girls have went missing. However, the police have a low success rate in ever finding these children. So we're just hoping that through time we'll only learn to know whether these boys will be found, or perhaps their remains be found, or to confirm the ritual killing aspect of it.
Pelani, I thank you for that update. Pelani Pachari, talking about the disappearance of an 11-year-old boy in Extension 44 in Polokwane on Wednesday last week. Since then, the community have taken the law into their own hands somewhat. Vigilante attacks on the families of another boy that was with the youngster when he disappeared. Now, of course, South African comedian Trevor Noah has made the smooth transition into his role as the host of The Daily Show in the United States. He took over from long-serving host Jon Stewart. Noah opened up the show by citing his modest upbringing in South Africa and his unexpected hiring to succeed Stewart. The program will be shown in South Africa later today. Very much anticipated. Twitter, of course, has gone crazy. So people have been well impressed by the first showing of Trevor Noah. Let's have a look at just some of the comments that we've picked up. Ruby talks about finally getting to watch a daily show. Trevor's comedy is hilarious. Hope he brings funny and smart to the show. Make Africa proud at Trevor Noah. Yes, South Africa's favourite son, Trevor Noah. Wonderful young man. Penn Foundation says the reverse psychology on Trevor Noah's Daily Show debut worked like a charm. Clever approach. It must have disarmed all the naysayers. It's the Penn Foundation. Emily Bodkin, I'll have to watch the whole episode later, but the opening monologue for the Daily Show with Trevor Noah has eased my Jon Stewart emptiness. Yes, the world will get to know this young man. He's a genuine talent. Gio says, the Daily Show with Trevor Noah isn't that bad. He's really funny. Well done, Jon Stewart, recruiting a good person to inherit the show. Yes, he's South African. Mozibudi Rachel M says, why are they calling him Dad? No, they're calling him Stepdad because he kind of watches over everyone working on the show. He carries the show. He's that good. He's Trevor Noah. He's South African, and we love him. Wonderful talent. Now let's go to a Newsroom Facebook page and let's have a look at what you can pick up there. Of course, crime statistics today, and crime analysts are predicting that the long-term downward trend in the murder rate will be broken when the national crime statistics are released today by Police Minister Nathi Nhleko at Parliament in Cape Town. Then President Jacob Zuma wants United Nations structures to include more African countries because they are no longer colonies, he told the UN yesterday. The United States and Russia have expressed differing views on how to resolve the crisis in Syria, while the UN Secretary General named both countries, in addition to Turkey, Iran and Saudi Arabia, as holding the keys to peace in the war-ravaged country. Time for us to take another break. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
People, we are getting there, and thanks to you, Party is set to become our country's 12th official language. Here's today's word. Substitute. Replacing a drinking buddy with somebody more fun. Yes! That's more like it.
Make it a home game with a case of Castle Lager for only $149.99 and help make Party South Africa's 12th official language. Tops at Spar. Shake things up.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. An increase in violent crimes. That's what crime experts say. This year's crime statistics will reveal today. This when Police Minister Nathi Nhleko releases the annual national statistics in Parliament this morning. The woman who was arrested after drugs worth 4.6 million rand were found in her possession at Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport is expected to be in court this morning. After wide speculation that she's a local actress, police confirmed that she worked only as an extra. Her identity will be revealed when she appears in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court. And Twitter can't get enough of Trevor Noah this morning as the comedian hosted his first ever episode of the new revamped Daily Show from New York. He officially took over from Jon Stewart yesterday, but his first episode will only be televised in South Africa on Comedy Central at 9 tonight. Well, remember, for more on all of those stories, you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for SABC Newsroom. Of course, you can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
Thank you. Thousands of people staged a mass demonstration in Congo's capital, Brazzaville, on Sunday to protest the plans by veteran ruler Denis Sassou Nguesso to try to extend his rule once again. Under the current constitution, presidential terms are limited to 2, and candidates under the age of 70 can run for the top office. But 72-year-old Nguesso has ruled for 30 years now and wishes to change the constitution to allow him to continue in power. These changes would effectively pave the way for him to stand for a third term in 2016. Now, joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, is SABC correspondent Sarah Kimani. A very good morning to you, Sarah.
Good morning, Eben, and thank you for having me.
Sarah, just give us a sense of what the situation is like in the capital, Brazzaville, and the same views, are they shared elsewhere in the country?
Yes, indeed, the capital is quiet today, but the opposition has said it will be calling more protests and demonstrations once President Nguesso announces the date of the referendum. Because what he said is that there was going to be a referendum to be able to have the Congolese people decide on the new constitution and changing the constitution in order to allow him to run for a third term and also to extend the age limit of presidential candidates. So today there is nothing much happening, but they have the opposition has promised to be back on the streets once that date is announced.
What level of support does Sassou Nguesso have in the country right now, Sarah?
Well, he won in the past 2 elections. However, there has been growing concern that those elections were fraudulent. And even the last election, there was a concern that it was not a free and fair election. The opposition, they say, they were clamped on, and there has always been clamping on dissent. And for a man who has been in power for too long, they feel that he's in control of all independent organizations and commissions that are supposed to run an independent and free and fair election. So a lot of people actually came out on the streets yesterday, and the opposition seems to be gaining more support, especially as it comes to not having Nguesso run for a third term and for him to end his rule, which runs over 3 decades.
Now, a planned referendum is the way it's going to go about it. If it is approved on changes to allow Sassou Nguesso to run again, it's been dubbed a constitutional coup by the opposition. What do you think this would mean for the country in the medium and longer term?
Well, the election then would be held next year. Nguesso would probably win because, according to the opposition, they don't think they stand a chance of a free and fair election as long as Nguesso is standing. However, they're promising to have revolutions like what we have seen in Egypt, Tunisia, and most recently Burkina Faso. They're saying that those people have had their chance, and now it will be the chance of Congo, Brazzaville to go on the streets and force Nguesso out. So it will be an interesting year to see what happens between now and October next year when the election is supposed to be held.
The new constitutional referendum process, how would that take shape and how long will it take to draw up and finalize?
Well, the president is the only one who has the mandate to announce the date. Incidentally, in most countries, that would be the work of the Electoral Commission. But in Congo, the president is the one who will announce the date. The only thing he has said is that he will be announcing dates for a referendum. So we still do not know what kind it would take, whether it would be delegates from various political parties or whether it would people going for the vote and having one man, one vote. We're yet to see what it would take and when it would be held. However, time is running out for Nguesso and indeed the country to decide on whether they want to have a third term for Nguesso or indeed they want to go to an election without Nguesso.
Sarah, under the current situation, the constitution in the country, what does it say about Sassou Nguesso's current situation and his position as president right now?
Well, this is his last time. He has previously been president, and then he took a break as an opposition member, and then again he's now been running he's been president for 30 years, but under 2 terms after the constitution was changed. But also under the same constitution, he's now passed the age limit because he's 72, and they say a presidential candidate can only be up to 70. So already he's running his time, and according to the constitution, when the election is held next year, unless they change the constitution, he should not run. First, because he's already done 2 terms, and secondly, because he's 72 years of age.
On this note, this year alone, we've seen attempted coups and protests opposing presidents in Burundi, Burkina Faso, and now the Congo. Why do these presidents continue to push to stay in power when it's evident that large large sections of the country want change, and also that the constitutions state that.
Well, what is coming out now, Eben, is a new trend where presidents are coming out through the back door, but getting third terms through the back door by changing the constitution. We've seen it in Burundi. We saw it happen in Rwanda, and now Congo Brazzaville also trying it. There's also a similar situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the opposition is up in arms against President Kabila extending his term. International community saying, and even President Obama, when he was in Ethiopia and in Nairobi, saying that any president can be voted for as many terms as it is possible. However, there should be constitutions and laws that guide citizens on how long somebody can stay in power. One thing you'd say is, because also there are other leaders who can serve those countries, and it would be good to see what can they give. Take, for example, Ngwaso has been in power for 30 years, and this is what the NGOs and the opposition are asking in the Congo. If he's been in power for more than 30 years, what changes can he bring now if he takes power for another 5 years?
Sarah, thank you very much for that update. That's our East African correspondent, Sarah Kamani, giving us an update following protests in Congo Brazzaville over the weekend. That is, over the president wanting to run for a third term. It sounds all too familiar at the moment. Now, President Jacob Zuma has given a hard-hitting speech at the United Nations General Assembly, urging the international community, or the international body rather, to be more reflective of today's world. Addressing the 70th session in New York, President Zuma criticized the lack of progress in resolving the Palestinian question. He also urged the world to tackle the climate challenge when the UN conference meets in Paris for COP21 in December.
In a speech that clearly reflected his frustration at the slow progress of the UN reform, President Zuma appeared unrestrained.
It is unacceptable and unjustifiable that more than 1 billion people in the African continent are still excluded as permanent members of the key decision-making structure of the United Nations Security Council.
Taking issue with Europe, which has 700 million people, but 3 permanent members.
The UN cannot pretend that the world has not changed since 1945. We are no longer colonies. We are free, independent, sovereign states.
Showing solidarity with the Palestinians, the president thanked the UN for allowing its flag to be raised and said the Palestinian question needed to be urgently addressed.
There can be no peace, security and development in the Middle East without the resolution of the Palestinian question.
On the meddling in the internal affairs of Syria and in North Africa, facing an outflow of refugees to Europe, the president didn't hold back.
The current situation in Libya and the Sahel region is a direct consequence of some members of the UN Security Council not heeding informed counsel from the African Union.
The president also called for action on climate change. The UN conference will take place in Paris later this year. The United Nations is set to appoint the new Secretary General next year. President Zuma says a more transparent and inclusive process is necessary to enable meaningful participation. Mzwande Lembeje, SABC News, New York.
Now, at the same summit, world leaders gathered at the United Nations special summit on sustainable development goals for 2030. But although the UN plans to accelerate growth and close the gap in healthcare, Doctors Without Borders told us yesterday they're concerned that there is a disconnect between the goals and the real-world experiences that so many of their aid workers see on a daily basis. Joining us now via Skype from the World Health Organization's offices here in Johannesburg is Dr. Sarah Louise Barber. We apologize for the quality of the picture, but we'll carry on with the interview. Very good morning to you, Dr. Barber. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, 1 out of 17 targets are focused on healthcare. There are many aspects to healthcare. What is the prime focus of the plan ahead for you at the WHO?
Well, the One Health goal includes a number of specific targets. The first set of targets relates to the unfinished agenda of the communicable diseases, HIV, TB, and malaria. The second component of the health goal includes the non-communicable diseases, including tobacco, alcohol, substance abuse, and injury. And then the third component is about universal health coverage. So the one goal actually is quite comprehensive in terms of the whole health agenda that we have.
We spoke to Doctors Without Borders yesterday, and they commend the UN for the goals, but they feel that the plan lacks real-world outcomes and that aid organizations experience on a daily basis the disconnect between true healthcare needs and the plan. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the process of getting an agreement on these 17 goals was a long one. It was a consultative one, and it was an inclusive one. So the process took about 3 years. There was widespread consultation, online consultation, social media, youth groups participated, civil society, as well as organized groups working in the healthcare sector. So I think essentially the process meant that we had a much longer set of goals and targets than initially planned, but it was an inclusive process, and I do think it does represent the views of people working on the ground, particularly civil society and youth. There was a special effort to use social media to reach out to youth to engage as many people in the process as possible.
There are also concerns about funding for healthcare that's being reduced globally. Do you believe that this is the case?
Well, global external funding from the international community is not increasing at the same rate that it was. However, we do have new players in the global international health community. China, the BRICS countries, South Africa is playing an important role in terms of its technical engagement in health. So we have a number of new players. We also know that essentially it's an issue of priorities. A back-of-the-envelope calculation of the SDGs tells us that we need approximately $2 to $3 trillion to achieve the SDG targets. And if we put this in perspective, it's 2 to 3% of our global economic output every year. So really, if we have the political commitment, we can do it.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Sarah Louise Barber, who's from the World Health Organization's Johannesburg office. We apologize for the quality of the pictures there, but as you can see, sometimes, technology is not 100%, but at the moment in our business, 85% is good enough. At least we got the gist of that interview now. Scientists have discovered the strongest evidence yet that flowing liquid water exists on Mars. This was announced by NASA yesterday. Imaging instruments aboard NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter identified evidence of hydrated minerals called perchlorates that have formed streaks on slopes on Mars' surface, the agency said. The most exciting thing about the announcement is that it would be possible to have life on Mars, said NASA's John Grunsfeld. You wouldn't think so with a planet that's 5 billion years old. Here are some of the views that we found. Rohit Nakwa says, NASA says they found water on Mars. Alejandro Espinoza, NASA announced water on Mars today. Pretty cool. I wonder if there are any organisms up there. No, Alejandro, we are alone in the universe. Ben Stone says, people who aren't excited to hear NASA's Mars announcement are why we can't have nice space explorations. That one from Ben Stone. Jimmy Salford says, non-profitist, having found water on Mars, NASA now plans to search for intelligent life in the Senate. Ha ha ha, funny, Jimmy. And there you have, there's some of the, well, what they say, some of the evidence of water running down a mountain. My word, look at that. You wouldn't say. Fantastic. There is water on Mars. And yeah, we still believe that we are alone in the universe and that the Earth is flat. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You'll be watching Newsroom, where we love it in the morning.
Across the globe, locally and